Let's start first with rent to own programs. A lot of people don't even believe that they're actually still out there, rent to own. So, will you talk a little bit about rent to own?
Welcome to the Jennifer J. Hammond Podcast. Jennifer is a licensed realtor, educator, speaker, and best-selling author. Jennifer's goal is to help you find your yay in every day.
Hello, it's Jennifer J. And I'm so excited. As you know, I love when we can bring you someone who is so full of education and is interested in helping you make good decisions in real estate. I'm so excited about Aaron Bradley. He's one of our mortgage guys with Blue Gray Mortgage. And I'm so excited to have you, Aaron. Thank you for being on the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Jennifer. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I love the fact that you're somebody who is passionate about sharing the education. So you're always, one, educating yourself, and two, you're passionate about it. So tell the audience a little bit about who you are and why you do what you do.
Yeah, so my name's Aaron Bradley. I've kind of lived all over the country, but my wife and I have called the Tampa area home for almost 2 years now. We love it here. We kind of moved here to be closer to family. And that was nice because we were away from family for a long time out in Dallas and LA. And I actually got introduced to the mortgage industry through a friend of mine I used to work with. We were actually working for a property management software company together, and he later went into mortgages. And he always kind of encouraged me to get into it because he knows how I like to solve problems and help people. And as I've gotten older and learned more about renting versus buying, I'm like, people need to know more about this, and I want to be that problem solver for them. So sure enough, as soon as I got my first taste of it, I loved helping people, and I never stop. I look for any way possible to get someone in a home that's like the right fit for them. So
well, and I love that because, again, I think that's exactly, sometimes I describe as a licensed real estate agent. That's all I do. I'm just the problem solver. There's another problem, and then another problem comes up, and then another problem comes up. And I think that's part of it, is just learning to be able to solve whatever issues it is. And I want to say nobody checks all the boxes for anything, especially with a mortgage. I know people love automatic underwriting because everything goes super quick and through, but so often we don't fit into those boxes. And so let's start first with rent to own programs. A lot of people don't even believe that they're actually still out there, rent to own. So will you talk a little bit about rent to own?
yeah, I'm really glad we're talking about this because a ton of people don't know anything about these. So the whole idea of rent to own programs is to help someone who's kind of in a cycle of renting. If they were left up by themselves, they still wouldn't be ready for home ownership. This is a bridge to get them on the path to home ownership. So some of the companies that offer programs for rent to own are Divvy, Landis, Home Partners of America, and they set them up pretty similarly, but there's usually some differences that are good to watch out for. So I'll talk a little bit about that. So typically, what the company will do is buy a home upfront for you, maybe with like a 3% fee added on. So some things that you need to know upfront are this rent that you'll be paying on this house might be a little bit higher than the market rent for a similarly priced home. So you need to take that into account. Another thing you need to take into account is sometimes they're set up on a time frame where maybe you have like 3 years of renting before you can purchase the house, or they might set it up where you're required to buy it no matter what. So some things to watch out for are, am I going to be earning more money by the time my time period is up? Or am I even going to be able to save up money while I'm renting? And some other nuances that you need to think about are we in a down market right now, or are we about to be in one? Because you might be getting into a house that could lose value depending on what your time period is before you jump in there. And so there's other things to watch out for, like you might have responsibility for repairs and maintenance while you're renting, which is different than if you were just renting, the normal way. And something that's good to like kind of continue the education. I know that Lending Tree and Investopedia have some really great online articles about rent to own programs. So that those would be some good shout outs for people to learn a little bit more about them.
And it's interesting because, as you said, there are a lot of similarities, but there are a lot of differences. And I always say that, sometimes the gotchas in the fine print. So understanding what you fully agreed to and understand that you should read the contract and know it so that you can live up to it. Even like foreclosures and short sales, when we had so many of those. And it's interesting, as the market shifts, we'll see maybe some more things, but then people didn't read their contracts. And so we want to make sure you know what you've agreed to in any contract, including your mortgage, which I know most people never read, but at least have a lot of the basic stuff in there that you really do understand, including the legal concepts that I know we don't talk about on a daily basis, but important to know that, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because really the ideal candidates for these programs are people who have had like a significant credit event, like a Chapter 7 bankruptcy or a foreclosure or something.
Yeah. And that's it. But to know that the other thing about that is to know that there is a possibility. I so often hear people say, oh, no, I had something terrible happen. And sometimes it could be a medical thing that just destroyed their credit, or it could be a divorce or death in the family. And it changed things for them. And they ended up, again, their credit is not so good. So rent to own, I think, are programs that can give you hope and can also help restore your credit in some respects. But again, always make sure you read and you know what you're agreeing to before you get into a rent to own program. Okay, so next thing I wanted to talk about when we're in the whole realm of mortgages are rates on the rise. And I think this is such a great one. Rates on the rise. It's been talked about a lot because the interest rates keep seeming to go up. As we're trying to tame inflation, I would say the United States is really having a bit of an interesting time at it. So what can you tell us about rates on the rise?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right about inflation, but I want to take a step back because the most recent news has actually been good news. So yes, we did just have another rate hike this month in March, but it was lower than what we expected from the Fed. So it was a 25 basis point hike, and basis points are percentage points. So if you see something that's 1.5% interest, that 0.5 represents 50 basis points. And that's what we expected the Fed to do, was a 50-point hike. But timing is everything. And as we've kind of seen, some things that probably influence the Fed's decision are these recent defaults by these banks like SVB and First Republic that probably, gave the Fed some pause to pull back on that a little bit. But even though they've kind of been up and down since that announcement, overall, they're actually lower now. So since that 25 bips hike, rates have been going down. And now the prevailing sentiment is we're expected to only have one more hike this year, and it'll probably be around May. But to your point about inflation, the whole reason we've had all these hikes over the last year is because that is all the Fed cares about. They don't care about some of the ripple effects like unemployment rising because of the hikes. All they care about is right now we're at a 6% inflation rate and they want to get it to 2. So they did everything in their power and will continue to do to get it down to 2. So some things that they are looking at is we've actually had some recessionary indicators over the last year. And technically for half of last year, we were in a recession. So in Q1 and Q2, GDP growth in the US was declining or stagnant, and that's the definition of recession. But it got better in Q3 and it went up. And then we hit another recessionary indicator, which was the bond yield curve inverted in October. And basically what that means is the way investors look at it, they're scared that their returns will be lower long-term than short-term. So they're not confident about the future of investment. And unfortunately, 8 out of the last 9 times the bond yield curve inverted since 1955, we had a recession 6 to 24 months right after. So if this just happened in October, we could be seeing a recession in the next couple months or any time in the next year, unless we prove to be another exception. And it's funny because this is an interesting tip for everyone that's not really common knowledge. An indicator called the Benner cycles actually predicted this. So 2023 was kind of known to be a down year by this indicator. And if you study this chart, it might be till 2024 or 2025 that we would come out of a recession if we go into one this year. And actually, Forbes and Investopedia, again, have some great online articles if you want to learn more about the bond yield curve and the Benner cycles.
Well, and I think that's so helpful is to kind of be able to have references and where to go look and where to understand a little bit more. And that reminds me, the one thing I wanted to make sure as we kind of talk about, I want to ask you to pull out that magical crystal ball and talk about the future. But also I wanted you to take a minute to talk about the company that you work for, because there is definitely a difference between working for a bank versus working for a mortgage lender. And so if you would talk a little bit about the company that you work for and again, what you love about it.
Yeah, so I'm with Blue Gray Mortgage here in Tampa, Florida. Just joined the team pretty recently, thanks to a business that kind of turned into a personal friendship relationship with the owner, Tyler Wynn. It's basically a family-owned company, been around for about 10 years here in Tampa. He's been really involved in the community, helping being one of the founding members of the Asian Real Estate Association here in Greater Tampa, and really helping build these networking relationships that grew that chapter to what it is today. For me, I think that what makes us special is we pay attention to details. We form relationships with everyone in the process, not just the borrowers. As brokers, we have a lot of relationships that we're managing throughout the process. And because we do, conventional loans, but also private investment loans like DSCR, and we also cover some of those tricky condo hotels and non-warrantable condos that so few lenders actually take care of here in Tampa. We have to have good relationships with all of our lending partners to get the best, rates and terms and situations for our borrowers.
And I think that's really important. And that's one of the big differences I wanted to take a second to highlight is that, you mentioned the non-warrantable condos. And quite frankly, I just want to say things that are unique, because if you go to big banks, and again, they're just so reliant on this automatic underwriting, and there isn't really a lot of room to say, hey, wait a minute, I'm the square peg and I don't fit into your round hole of these big banks. And you have the opportunity, but you have an incredible, I want to say, resources to be able to look at things and not just judge a book by its cover, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
That is really special. So I wanted to make sure we talked about that. But as you know, I'm so interested in people being able to get in touch with you. So how would you like them to reach out to you? Website, social media, phone number, anything you'd like to share?
Yeah, absolutely. Bluegraymortgage.com is our website, and there's a little section on there, Meet the Team. You can learn a little bit more about me right there. And, email is a great way, Aaron@bluegraymortgage.com. And my business number is 727-209-7512. So
perfect. Well, Aaron, as you know, I'm known for my yay, so I'm going to ask you to raise your voice and say yay with me as we go off the air. Is that okay?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, 3, 2, 1. Yay! That's perfect. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Jack Canfield. You may know me as the co-author of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series.